Hey guys, welcome to the podcast, Awaken and Manifest Your Best Life. Now today I've been really wanting to talk to you about something that is very common and often I see this a ton, and it's how do I get more consistent with my spiritual practice? Now, the reason why we're taking it back a little to more of these foundational topics is I've been very inspired by my latest release called Mindful Rituals and the importance of mindfulness. So to continue on with our conversation on mindfulness, I want to emphasize something that many spiritual people often struggle with is how do I get more consistent with my spiritual practice, and how can I help myself get a better spiritual practice through establishing more consistency. So let's dive in. Hey guys, I am Ashley here, if you don't know me, from theawakenstate.net. And today I want to talk about consistency. This is one of the hugest problems that is often very, very, very apparent in many journeys of spirituality and in general, just goal setting, habit tracking, looking into habit stacking, going after your goals, going after your New Year's resolutions. Understanding the power of consistency is so powerful. And I think a lot of us can struggle with this because what is one person's form of consistency is totally different from another person's form of consistency. And I think it's important to emphasize that when it comes to consistency for a spiritual practice, there's a few things that you should keep in mind to help give you way more of a solid spiritual practice. Now, the first one that I really want to talk about is, without a doubt, you have to know what you want to do for your spiritual practice. I know it sounds obvious, but some people will be like, well, one day I want to meditate. One day I want to do oracle cards. One day I want to do this. One day I want to do visualization. You know, it's fine if you want to just tune into your intuition and see what you want to do. But I honestly find that the easiest way to gain more consistency with anything, whether it's exercise routine, 30-day challenge, completing a project on time, any of it, the number one thing I have to do is set a date with myself. So getting clear on what that practice is sets the foundation of what that date will be. So for example, if you have a set practice of meditation, okay, do you have a playlist of those meditations, or do you just meditate by pranayama or somatic breath? Okay, now if you have that, where are you meditating? Do you have a space where you show up to every day to meditate? Or is it random? Like some days it's in bed, some days it's on the couch, some days it's over here. The problem with moving things around so fluidly is we have to remember that we are creatures of habit. When we don't honor the fact of our own human behavior, we often will fall off track more easily if we were just doing things by habit. Now, for example, if you have a visualization practice, maybe you have like a jar full of ideas to pull from for visualization. This is actually something I've heard many people like to do for manifestation practice, is they have a visualization jar full of the visualizations they want to visualize, and they have this jar to pull on so that they can stay consistent with their visualization practice. Now, in the same regard, if you have a journaling practice, do you have a place to journal? Where do you journal? Do you actually own a journal, for starters? Like, you can't get started on your journaling practice if you forget to buy the journal. Like, you have to get the foundations right first, is what I'm trying to get at. Number one, what is your spiritual practice? Is it meditation, visualization, talking to higher self? Is it sound frequencies? What is it? Then secondly, do you make it easy for yourself to do it? Because this is just what we were talking about. Do you make it easy for yourself? If you have a meditation practice, do you have a playlist on your phone or your computer that you can turn to for those meditations? Or a YouTube playlist, for example. Do you already have them good to go? because that will help you create more consistency more easily. Because here's the thing, we have to deal with our everyday resistance, and sometimes the hardest part is literally showing up. The hardest part is battling the resistance to showing up. So the best thing you can ever do for yourself is to make it as easy as possible to show up, because that will help when it comes to combating the resistance. It's the same concept of, I was just talking about this with my man. It's like, I don't want to wear blue jeans because I like to do Pilates every day. Now, I would rather wear my workout clothes while I'm working and then jump into Pilates versus getting all dressed up and wearing blue jeans and getting all like fancy and then not wanting to work out. It's the same concept. If you want to go to the gym, make sure you have your gym clothes and your gym shoes right out there so that they're easy to grab and your gym bag is already packed. This helps you. In the same regard of meditation and spirituality, you need to be making it easier for yourself. You need to be allowing yourself to be like, okay, how can I make this so that it's easy? How can I make it so that I will be committed to show up? And when you do this, you kind of allow yourself to just, it's almost like we're trading this into almost a habit, because what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to be like, okay, it's easier to show up now that my yoga mat is already in the living room. It's easier to show up that I'm already dressed and ready to go. You're literally helping yourself by doing that. So that's one of the next things you can do is how can you make it easier for yourself? Now, if you need to take notes, take notes. How can you make it easier for your own spiritual practice? What are routines, habits, or even just things that you can move around in your house to make it easier for you? Do you have a place to meditate? Do you have a set meditation pillow? Do you have, if you like to meditate in bed, do you make your bed before you meditate? Do you like to do certain things in a particular way as you meditate? Because then you should prepare your space for that. It's the same way when I do my journaling practice. I have a chair and I have my pen and everything ready to go. I grab it every single morning so that I know that when it's time to journal after eating breakfast, I always journal. This has been my consistent practice as a writer for many years since my daughter was born in 2015. And this journaling practice I've done every single day without fail, 365 days, out of the year, because this is my practice of a writer and basically affirmations and intentions and all of that. But this isn't about me. So when you think about how I show up every day with my journal in hand after breakfast, I know that it's time to journal. It's the same regard. If you want to build a meditation practice, are you going to show up? How do you show up? Do you have the playlist already? Do you have the set tools already? Do you have the meditation pillow? Do you have the sacred space ready for you to show up? Because this will ease the process tremendously. And then the next thing I want to invite you to explore is when. When do you practice? Do you like to practice in the morning? Do you like to practice in the evening? Do you like to practice at midday? This could also be applied to even if you were incorporating like a fitness routine. It's the same thing. Do you like to do fitness in the morning, in the midday, or in the evening? It's the same thing. So it's like you have to realize that it's almost like you're activating a habit when you allow yourself to get more consistent with spiritual practice. Now, when it comes to when do you do it, like if you like to do it in the morning, I invite you to explore, how is your morning routine? What do you do for your morning routine? Do you immediately just reach for your phone? Because I bet you're probably going to be less likely to meditate. So instead of reaching for your phone, maybe you should meditate before reaching the phone. In the same regard, if you like to eat before working out, you might want to wait to eat, work out, and then eat. Exactly. So you want to kind of just play with this in terms of how can you create a better routine for yourself so that you are working in favor of yourself. In the same regard, it's like if you have an evening routine, do you know what that evening routine is going to be? If it's to meditate for 15 minutes, but yet you have to deal with, putting away dinner and dealing with the kids and doing all these other things, you're not going to commit to that because you're busy. So you have to realize, okay, I can't have it at this time. I need to have it an hour later. So you have to allow yourself to explore your aligned habits and your personal aligned schedule. It's kind of like if you were to just ask you, what is my dream schedule for my spiritual practice? What would I do? What would I change? How would I allow myself to give myself that freedom in the space and the commitment to have that dream schedule mapped out for how I would show up for my practice? Exploring that will be literally designed for you. My practice will be different than your practice, and so forth. And I definitely believe that, I've always said this over and over and over and over again, is you never want to box in your spiritual practice, because one person's spiritual practice may be entirely different to their own learning style, their intuition, their gifts, and their authenticity compared to your spiritual practice. For example, you also might have varying evolutions of your spiritual practice. I've went through many phases of spiritual evolution practices. For many years, I was doing a lot of meditation practices. And I've also done many, Kundalini yoga practices consistently. It's varied throughout the entire, 10, 11, 12 years? 12 years. I think 12 years. Yeah. And it's been different every time. I've done visualization, I've done meditation, I've done sound frequencies, I've done consistent, Deepak Chopra meditations. I've done all sorts of things like that. I've done where you do the mantras. What I've found that really helps me the most has been writing and journaling and channeling to higher self. That's what I've settled into. Now, for you, it could be totally different. It could be something to do with meditation. It could be yoga. I invite you to explore that not all meditation and spiritual practices are created for the same person. Everybody's different, and you have different alignment, and you have a different style of what brings you into the present moment. Finding that is like step one. What is your spiritual practice? You need to figure out what is your aligned practice. Now, the next thing I suggest, and this is kind of a little bit more off wall, but if you think about it, it makes sense. So when you think about how with a habit, you are creating a consistency with that habit. So how do you birth consistency? How do you think about, how does consistency work? What is created through consistency? Consistency is created through momentum. Consistency is created through momentum and repetition. It's also created through intention, momentum, and really allowing yourself to get absolutely clear on what is your aligned practice. But at the end of the day, what it really comes back to is my favorite thing. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. So one of the easiest ways to get more consistent is to create a challenge for yourself. Whether it's 28 days, 30 days, 40 days, 90 days, 60 days, whatever is acceptable for you. When you want to get more consistent, before you've even gotten started, it's important to create a challenge for yourself to show up, because this will trigger the reward centers in your brain to allow yourself to show up each day. And then the thing that about challenges is what you can also do, and this is dependent on your lifestyle and your beliefs, is you can create a reward system too. So it's like if I do 30 days of meditation, I reward myself with an oracle deck. Now I have an incentive to show up, because I know if I show up for 30 days, I'm going to buy myself an oracle deck. Now, at the same time, you don't have to do that. But I do find that when you're trying to develop consistency, it does help to have an incentive. Another incentive that you can do that's less material is you can focus on your why. Why do you want to show up for your meditation practice? Is it going to help you feel good? Is it going to help ease your anxiety? Is it going to help, connect to higher self and develop your intuition? What is your why behind showing up for your practice? Because this will also create an incentive for you to show up to your own challenge. At the same time, to develop a consistent thread of momentum, you have to be allowing yourself to show up with repetition. Now, repetition is part of what creates a challenge, because the repetition is what will allow you to create it into a habit, and that's what builds momentum. So when you think about how when it goes to any level of thread of consistency, it might not be that you want to start gung-ho and do 7 days of meditation all at once. But you could do meditation for 3 days out of the week. Then next week, you bump it up to 4 days out of the week. Then you stay at 4 days a week, and then you kind of ease into 5 days a week. And then after 5 days a week, you can go to 6 days a week. And what you'll notice is you gain more comfortable awareness of increasing that as you go. Now, this is a very valuable tool for consistency, because what it does is it doesn't trip your nervous system to be overwhelmed by change. Now, this can actually happen. This is a very real thing. It's part of your biology that if you change too rapidly, you will start to self-sabotage unconsciously, because your nervous system it doesn't feel safe to go the extra mile yet. But that's okay, because that just means you need to dial it back a little and, bump it down. If instead of, doing 7 days a week, do 5 days a week. Instead of 5 days a week, do 3 days a week. Do 2 days a week if you really want to just ease in. But what happens is this is what allows you to develop such a solid, sustainable spiritual practice. Now, the reason why I say challenges is because challenges have helped me so much with developing a solid practice. Over the years, when I was pregnant and I gave birth to my daughter, I remember, or was it my son? I don't know. It was whenever I was pregnant. And in the healing phase, I did Kundalini yoga for 40 days. During those 40 days, I reestablished a ton of spiritual wisdom. I healed my body. I lost weight. I was incredibly healthy for being in that postpartum phase. And it taught me a lot about consistency. 40 days of solid Kundalini yoga is incredibly powerful because you're working with the Kundalini energy as well. Now, what allowed from that process, I had an extreme spiritual detox occur, and it was very powerful. At the same time, like I mentioned before, I've done the Deepak Chopra challenges that he does on I think it's his podcast. I don't remember. It's been so long ago. Maybe it's CDs. It's either CDs or on his podcast. But he has these challenges where you can go through 28 days of meditation, and he has ancient mantras that you can recite. And it helps just kind of clear your mind and open up your consciousness. So I've done challenges like that. And then, like I said, I've done journaling challenges off and on and all the time. I've done meditation challenges. I've done manifestation challenges where I do 30 days of intention setting. I've done gratitude challenges of 28 days of gratitude. I've done 30 days of gratitude. These really work. They work because there's so much momentum behind it that it really builds it into a habit. So you sustain that consistency, and that helps you. It becomes more of a habit. So it's automatic. You're more likely to show up. You have an incentive to show up, and it's so much more powerful. It's powerful because now not only are you kind of you're in the ride, you're in the wave, right? So when you're in the wave and you're in the momentum builds, and it's kind of like you're in a snowball effect. And eventually that snowball effect compounds. And when it compounds and it reaches the compound effect, now it's starting to ingrain into your identity. And what you'll find is, you'll have spiritual guidance, you'll have spiritual wisdom, you'll have intuitive insight, you'll have better health, you'll feel more calm in your nervous system, you'll feel more safe in your nervous system. The list can go on and on and on. But what you'll ultimately find is that you're more aligned. You're more in a place of spiritual alignment because you're willing to show up to the consistency, and the consistency builds over time. And most importantly, I do want to say that if you do have trouble with consistency in your spiritual practice, the number one thing you can't do and you shouldn't do is don't beat yourself up. This used to happen to me all the time. I used to be mad at myself because I wouldn't hit my yoga goals, or I didn't hit my Kundalini yoga goals, or whatever. Whatever you do, don't beat yourself up. You're human. You're learning on the journey. It's a process. It's a process. It's taken me years to be consistent with journaling. It's taken me, I'm still working on getting better at being consistent on meditation, because it's not really my strongest avenue. I do love meditation, but I prefer channeling. And I think that's one of my natural gifts, is more so channeling. And I love meditation. I think it's a great practice. It's so good for relaxation and clearing your mind. But I don't always find that it serves me as much as it used to, which is interesting, because you might find that it just might evolve. You're in spiritual practice. One year could be different the next year. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But at the end of the day, consistency does take practice. It takes commitment. It takes resilience. And most importantly, you will have off days. You will have days where you don't want to show up. You will have days where you feel like crap. And those are the days where it's important to just be gentle and loving to yourself and find the journey. Get back on the horse. Ride into the sunset. Okay, so I hope these deeply served you. I'd love to know, which one are you going to work on next? Are you going to work on where you meditate, what you want to do for your spiritual practice? I'd love to know, what is your spiritual practice? I'm always intrigued on knowing what is everyone's unique spiritual practice, because it's such a fascinating thing. Okay. So I hope you deeply enjoyed this episode. If you'd like more where that came from, definitely tune in to our Spiritual Awakening Roadmap. That is roadmap.theawakenedstate.net, where you can dive into all sorts of things relating to mind-body healing, the spiritual awakening journey, a map and prompts to go through to help you find what phase you are on your own spiritual awakening journey, and so forth. Okay, you guys have a great day.